Hello, my name is Marc Gomez. This is my capstone. I teach at Democracy Prep Harlem High School in Harlem, New York. I teach sociology of change the world, government, and economics. One of the most unique things about this school is that we are driven to be college focused. Our network slogan is work hard, go to college, change the world. We're moving a little bit and adding more things to the work hard part. While we are still a college prep focused school, we are focused on other pathways as well. We are a charter network. There's three different states in our network, with New York being the largest network. I live and work in Harlem. Since I live here, I see a lot of what's going on in the neighborhood. A few of our unique and important resources include shelters for homeless and other types of people. We have food banks that our schools are partners with, my class and other organizations. We also have great museums and public spaces. There's a couple of parks, and there's also the Museum of the City of New York, which I actually profiled for this class, which is really cool. So there's a lot of stuff to do here in Harlem. The school is mostly comprised of Black and African American students, as well as a lot of immigrants from Latin America, as well as from Africa. A very unique and diverse group of students. There's also 90% of the students are economically disadvantaged. My research question is, what is the impact of one-on-one instruction on high school students and helping them reach their goals on major assignments? My subgroups and groups are mostly IEP kids and ones that you actually didn't move on to the AP research section of their English class. So I'm also technically a subsect of their English, but I am a history class at core. Then the impact of my research is I'm able to see how I can use one-on-one instruction to improve multiple facets of the learning process. Since I looked at both academic SEL and belonging frames, I'm able to see just how far getting more targeted feedback and FaceTime with the teacher can help all around. As far as connections, I noticed that a lot of students are having a hard time on large research tasks. I can relate to them as an EDU-510 student as well. I think that's really going to help with not only academics, but with self-efficacy, which is one of my other pathways. I think that if students see that I'm spending a lot more time with them, they'll feel like they can do a lot of their tasks and complete it with very high marks. I also think a sense of belonging is important there too, because they can see that I care and I want to help them. The connections I make to my instructional practice, but that I make a lot more time for students. As I said, I have at least one workday a week where the students meet with me and they can see where they are. This is relevant to other educators because I was always doing research. I've always done research, this research class. There's a lot of information about one-on-one meetings that I've done in my literature review, and it's usually called tutoring. But in my space, it's a separate pullout where the pullout actually happens in class where I take kids, everyone else is working on tasks that I've given them that they need to do, and they meet with me and they know which tasks they have to do um, to complete the next larger assignment in the research paper by the end. There's a lot of summative and formative information that we are working on. Since my school is very diverse and most students are categorized as economically disadvantaged, I think it's very important that they see me as an educator as well as a mentor. That is not to say that they need to be saved in any sense, but seeing that they have more support and someone that's on their corner has yields itself to more positive impacts. Um, Data here tells me that they can feel like they can succeed in this class and that they have the tools at their disposal to make things work. The question, I feel as though I have a good support system in this class, including scholars, teachers, and advisors. There was a 14% decrease in the disagree option from round one to round two, where students now feel that they have at least some type of support system. I also feel as though overall, all questions have taken a positive turn as more scaffolding and classroom culture tracking has been introduced. I have learned that taking into account students' feelings about their work and how they feel they can or can't attack it has helped me improve a lot from round two to round three in terms of third data tracking facet, classroom community and belonging. I can see that there was a 23% increase in the question. In this class, I feel like an idea I shared was taken seriously by my teacher in the extremely sure category, showing me that there was an increase in the feeling that students can get their voices heard. I also changed the question choices as I thought not sure to extremely short range was more applicable for them than the previously asked agree versus disagree range because I can tell that my students were more comfortable answering like that. In the same vein, I'm happy to see how changes in the classroom structure lead to their question. In this class, my teacher responded to a student's suggestions to make our class better, having a 75% positive outcome. Literature review. So like I said, to the academic research that has been focused more on tutoring, where I want to make it more about, I want to harken it more towards one-on-one meetings that are not supplemental like tutoring is, but something that is built into instructional time. The research reflects a new potential direction for the field beyond my classroom because in terms of tracking large assignments, academia and research is lacking a bit. In the journal Education and Treatment of Children, John McDonald and colleagues discuss how embedded instruction for students in special education settings works and how it can be improved. While this was a great study and one that helped me model mine, the data they used was much more broad and used by students in middle school. My research is focused on high school students and ones with a lot more independence than the ones they used. One of my sources was focused on more middle school and elementary school than other ones, and it focused on a music class, which relates to my talk in the fact there's definitely should be more practice time and one-on-one in a class like music or for younger kids, but I want to focus more on high schools and strict academics where I feel this subsect hasn't been analyzed into as deeply because they assume that tutoring is going to be something you do after school or something that students opt into. This being said, I believe the qualitative data has a lot of merit. For example, it has been stated that in one-on-one instruction, the teacher creates a social context and moves it in the way they want to, much differently than peer interactions or feedback. And that's something I agree with, where I can direct things a little bit more targeted than a peer would. Methodology. Methodology was to track academics, specifically to track grades and assignments leading up to larger assignments. The research class I teach is 5 sections leading up to a 20-page paper, and so there are many separate summative assignments that lead into the larger formative assignment while being formative assignments as well. I do have a unique set of data in terms of grades, and then as far as other data sources like SEL, I tracked my meetings. So the other one that I have is going to be more focused on the meeting, so I took anecdotes and had students give me feedback during the meetings. This is an example of that. I was able to sit down with a student named Diana. She was very susceptible to the feedback. You can see here, let's move that. You can see here that Diana scored higher later in the year on all 3 sections of the paper. The one on the left was the first formative/summative assessment, where she got a 60, and by section 1, her redo, you can see over here, after her meeting with me, she got an 84, which was great. She used the feedback that I gave her in these notes while we were having our meeting to improve her grade. And here's an example of a slide that I would put up during these one-on-one meetings where students had a clear what to do directions of what to do during that time, depending on where they are. At this time, section 2 was past due, and they were supposed to implement feedback. And then I would also give them more feedback on those things in the meetings. Results. After analyzing my data, I've noticed a few trends. And one is I'm going to move through my 3 data round slides as I speak. One is that after lots of one-on-one instruction, you can see that having a somewhat significant impact in the scores of the summative assessments throughout the year. I noticed that by round 3, the 3rd section of the Change the World paper, there are significantly less zeros than in times past, seen in the leftmost column on the right graph. This tells me that students are not only more motivated, but that one-on-one meetings help a lot for the students' self-advocacy and see they feel like they get things done in a timely manner and submit on time. I also helped a lot with citations, which was 20% of the grade in this paper, and seeing as there are little to no zeros, everyone scored at least something for that part of the rubric. I also see trends that have a little less positive, being that there were fewer 100s by round 3, seen by the rightmost graph and the rightmost column on the right graph, excuse me. Since round three was accumulative of the first three sections, I believe since scores were cumulative and the lower scores from the other two rounds might have lowered the overall score for the third round. Another thing I noticed by comparing my subgroups is that the IEP and non-IEP subgroups in the left graph for all three were very similar. As IEP students scored around the same as their non-IEP counterparts. As far as students' interactions during these meetings, as previously said, a lot of them reviewed citation. One anecdote I got was that from a student with the initials JEA saying that after I looked at their citations, they said, "This was mad easy, Mr. Gomez. Thanks for looking at it with me." And that's something that made me happy and made me chuckle as well. Discussion. As far as analysis, so my research question was centered around student outcomes. I found that the data I collected was fairly unbiased, which is something I'm happy about seeing as this is a larger assignment all students have to do. Coupled with this, since this is also a larger assignment, some limitations are that students are fairly nervous and can sometimes not do as well. And because of this, this was also their first period class of the day. So sometimes attendance was low. While I was conducting the one-on-one meetings, gathering data that is qualitative, a lot of students told me that they feel less anxious while I'm sitting next to them writing their paper. The outcome of the strategy I selected in one-on-one meetings was that the results varied. There wasn't a lot of direct improvement or lower scores than I was initially anticipating. I thought that the direct result of the one-on-one meetings would lead to higher scores and overall and land a lot more than the 40% I got. That was 80% achievement by round three. That being said, the numbers did still improve overall. Next time, I believe I will choose a different group of students to track on one-on-one meetings, possibly doing them for oral presentation practice rather than larger papers. I believe that will have a more direct results as I can see it in real time. If I give the students feedback very close to their presentation and give them more at-bats. If other teachers were to replicate these results, I think having a more in-depth tracker and recording themselves during the meetings, either audio, visually, or both, would help. That's something I started doing around round three. Implications and next steps. The theoretical implications of my findings are that one-on-one meetings are a powerful tool, even if results don't always go to show in the academic/grades. I think they matter to me because my students do become more bonded to me through these meetings because they're not as formal as ones you would have with a teacher about just grades. And I'm able to speak with them in a more of a friendly manner and connect the things they need to write in the paper. Some additional questions that my research raises is how one-on-one instruction works differently throughout the grades. Since this is seniors' first foray into research writing, if there was a research class for students from 9th to 12th grade that they built upon, I would like to see how one-on-one meetings change and what different steps one would have to take to make sure it's more effective throughout the year. As previously stated, using more trackers and more targeted meetings, I think would also help, and I think it would also help for different age groups for levels of achievement. In my classroom, I think the academic literature would help substantiate this, as a lot of the sources I found have great qualitative data, but not as much presented quantitative data in terms of charts and graphs that can be easily manipulated and used to compare with ones that myself or colleagues might do outside the classroom. If there was a way to track these interactions in a way, like I said, with a no-catching spreadsheet, then the results can tell us which direction to go when overseeing both kinds of instructions. I might want to do start some type of journaling assignment where students write down how they feel before and after. Reflections, one-on-one meetings are something that I've been doing since I started working at school and teaching this class called Change the World. I believe that since this is a research class and one that lends itself to students learning a lot of new skills, meeting with the teacher who's grading them and giving them direct feedback is something I'm going to continue to do despite not seeing the overwhelmingly positive results I thought I was going to see. I think in the future, I will also try to structure these a little differently, maybe having a checklist that I have instead of one that I give to students. I would also track all of my data, either in my checklist, theirs, or both, in order to more accurately get the results and change my practice as a result. With this being a history class, I believe one-on-one meetings are easier to implement than it would be in other subjects, but in other subjects and classroom settings, I think that using the tracking that I previously mentioned still be something that will be helpful for all grades, the school, and the district. Interesting finding as far as ICL was that a lot of students did feel a good sense of belonging. They felt as if I was there for them. I thought that the positive feedback that I got would turn into better grades. There's another positive takeaway that even if they aren't doing well, at least they feel like they're comfortable in the class. And a lot of them said they learned something that they would remember. It was something that I was very happy about. Some limitations include that I should have done more data. I should have done a little bit more tracking during the meetings. It's a little bit hard to do everything all at once. I hope that more people in classrooms implement flex days where kids are going to be able to work on something larger while getting step-by-step feedback from the teacher. I think that's something that's important. A lot of people just move on to the next thing, give a test, but I think sometimes working with kids for specific skills is something that will help them in the long run, especially on big formative, summative assignments and in their life. Thank you very much.